October 20th, 2011. A chaotic, dusty scene in the Libyan desert. A man is pulled from a drainage pipe, bleeding and disoriented. This is the end for Muammar Gaddafi, the self-styled brother leader and king of kings of Africa. To the outside world, it looked like a spontaneous uprising, a brutal but maybe fitting end for a dictator at the hands of his own people. But what if it wasn't that simple? What if the official stories we're told about how some of Africa's most powerful and controversial leaders died, heart attacks, shootouts, mysterious illnesses, are just the neat and tidy cover stories?
This is the story of who might have really pulled the trigger on the man the West deemed Africa's most dangerous. First, we have to understand what that word dangerous really means. When Western powers labeled an African leader dangerous, it wasn't always about human rights. After all, they were happy to support some of the most brutal dictators on the continent for decades, as long as they played ball. No, dangerous was a code word. A leader became dangerous when they threatened the established economic order. They were dangerous when they challenged the systems that kept Africa's immense wealth, its oil, gold, diamonds, and uranium, flowing out of the continent. They were dangerous when they talked about Pan-African unity, nationalizing foreign companies, or creating new currencies to challenge the US dollar's dominance. They became dangerous when they refused to be a pawn in the great geopolitical game. The story often follows a pattern. A charismatic leader rises, usually on a wave of anti-colonial anger. They make bold promises of self-reliance. They challenge foreign corporations, and then, suddenly, conveniently, they die. A plane crash, a sudden illness, an assassination by a lone bodyguard.
The official report is always clean, but the questions never go away. To find the answers, you have to look in the shadows. Muammar Gaddafi ruled Libya for 42 years, and for most of that time, he was a thorn in the side of the West. He nationalized Libya's oil and openly challenged American and European power. But perhaps his most provocative idea was his dream of a gold-backed Pan-African currency. Some have argued that this idea, which could have challenged the US dollar's role in trade, was a direct threat to Western financial dominance. Then came 2011. Protests in Libya morphed into a civil war. The UN Security Council, pushed by NATO members, passed Resolution 1973, authorizing a no-fly zone to protect civilians. This led to Operation Unified Protector, a 7-month NATO bombing campaign involving over 26,000 sorties, with nearly 10,000 of them being strike missions that crippled Gaddafi's military. While NATO's stated mission was not regime change, its actions pointed elsewhere. The rebel forces on the ground were led by figures like Khalifa Haftar, a longtime opponent of Gaddafi, who had spent years in the United States and was known to have connections with the CIA. The end came on October 20th, 2011. Gaddafi's convoy, trying to escape the city of Sirte, was hit first by a US Predator drone and then by French jets. The strikes didn't kill him, but they stopped his escape, forcing him into that drainage pipe. There, rebel fighters found him. Early reports claimed he was killed in crossfire, but videos that surfaced later told a different story of a man captured, being tortured, and executed. The man who dreamed of challenging the dollar was gone.
On January 16, 2001, inside the Marble Palace in Kinshasa, President Laurent-Désiré Kabila was shot and killed by one of his own bodyguards, an 18-year-old named Rachidi Mizele. In the chaos that followed, the assassin was also killed. The official story was a mess. The government even flew Kabila's body to Zimbabwe while they figured out who would take over. A hasty trial convicted dozens, but human rights groups called it a sham. So what really happened?
To understand Kabila's death, you have to look at his life. He came to power by overthrowing the dictator Mobutu Sese Seko with help from Rwanda and Uganda. But once he had the presidency, Kabila turned on his former allies. He was a nationalist who wanted the Congo's incredible mineral wealth, coltan, diamonds, gold, to benefit his own country, not foreign powers or his neighbors. He ordered all foreign troops out, which enraged Rwanda, a country with deep economic interests in eastern Congo.
Investigative, significant. Years later, a groundbreaking Al Jazeera documentary called Murder in Kinshasa pieced together a far more plausible story. Damning, precise. The investigation argued that the assassination was a complex plot orchestrated by Rwanda. Specific, layered. It allegedly involved disgruntled child soldiers in Kabila's own security detail, all facilitated by a Lebanese businessman. Explosive, measured. The documentary also presented evidence suggesting that the United States may have been aware of the plot and chose not to intervene, seeing Kabila as an obstacle in the region. Chilling, conclusive. A bodyguard may have pulled the trigger, but powerful interests seem to have loaded the gun.
For 31 years, Mobutu Sese Seko was the textbook example of a Western-backed dictator. He ruled Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, with an iron fist, stealing billions while his people starved. But he was also a fierce anti-communist, which made him a key Cold War ally for the US and France. They looked the other way as he plundered his country, so long as he kept the Soviets out. But when the Cold War ended, Mobutu wasn't a strategic asset anymore. He was an embarrassment. The West quietly shifted its support to a rebellion led by the very man who would later be assassinated himself, Laurent-Désiré Kabila.
In 1997, old and sick with cancer, Mobutu was forced to flee. He died in a hospital in Rabat, Morocco, on September 7, 1997. The official cause was prostate cancer. A quiet end for a man who lived such a loud, brutal life. But was it that simple? While the official cause of death is well documented, the world of espionage is filled with whispers, and rumors of poison have always swirled around his death, fueled by the fact that he knew decades of secrets about his dealings with Western governments. A quiet death in a foreign hospital was a very neat way to close the book on a messy chapter.
The stories of Gaddafi, Kabila, and Mobutu aren't unique. They seem to be part of a larger pattern of suspicious and geopolitically convenient deaths that have marked African history. Consider Idi Amin, the butcher of Uganda, whose regime was responsible for the deaths of up to 300,000 people. After being overthrown in 1979, he lived comfortably in exile in Saudi Arabia. He died there in 2003, with the official cause being kidney failure. For a man who held countless secrets about the Cold War, it was a remarkably quiet end.
Then there's Sani Abacha, the military dictator of Nigeria. On June 8, 1998, he died suddenly in his presidential villa. He was buried the same day without an autopsy, following Muslim tradition, with the official cause of death listed as a heart attack. Rumors of poisoning swirled immediately and were so persistent that they were noted by Western diplomats and intelligence sources at the time. His death conveniently paved the way for a transition back to civilian rule, a move favored by Western powers who were growing tired of his erratic behavior in a nation so critical to the world's oil supply. From documented assassinations like Patrice Lumumba to these more mysterious deaths, the pattern is troubling.
When an African leader challenges foreign interests too directly, their time and power, and sometimes their time on Earth, often comes to a sudden and convenient end.
The declassified files, investigative reports, and historical records paint a picture that is far more disturbing than the official histories we're told. These events aren't just history, they continue to shape our world. If you want to keep exploring these hidden stories that powerful people would rather you not know, make sure you subscribe to our channel.
So, who really killed Africa's most dangerous men? The answer isn't a single person or country. It's a system. It's a pattern of geopolitical maneuvering designed to maintain a certain world order. The hand of foreign powers, operating through intelligence agencies or local proxies, is often suspected and, in some cases, has been proven. Many analysts argue the motive is rarely about democracy, it's about control. Control over resources, economies, and the political destiny of a continent.
Leaders like Gaddafi and Kabila were targeted not just because they were dictators, but, as some would argue, because they were dictators who went off script. They wanted to use their nation's wealth for their own people, or to build a more unified Africa. And in doing so, they may have signed their own death warrants. The irony is that these men who often promised a new dawn were frequently replaced not with freedom, but with chaos, civil war, or a new set of masters, leaving the people to pay the ultimate price.